All right. Well, here we are. I wanted to welcome everybody, all of our guests today. This is in a series of town hall meetings. This month, of course, is Pride Month. It's also Indigenous History Month. And of course, we've had the terrible issues that are going on in the United States right now with respect to anti-Black racism and difficulties with the police. So this is the third town hall that we've had this month. We did have an anti-Black racism discussion with police. We did have a nice discussion with Elder Shelley Charles and Debbie Sipkema regarding Indigenous. And now we're here at Pride Month. It's time to talk about all things about the LGBTQ community and all the good things that are happening right now. Of course, in the last 24 hours or so, there was some exciting action, some unfortunate action with respect to one of our local elected officials, and I'm sure we'll get around to talking about that. But first, I want to introduce everybody. So we have Councillor Lisa Post. Lisa has been involved in a number of issues, certainly the beginning of the Celebrate Your Awesome. She's also been involved in diversity and inclusion committee that we're about to kick off here at the town of Orangeville. And she's been involved with accessibility and seniors as well, even before she was involved in council matters. So Lisa, thank you. You're a busy mom, a busy grandmom, a busy student. I don't know how you get it all accomplished, but you're amazing, and thank you for taking the time out today to talk to us. We have Ricky Schaede. Ricky is an artist. He's also a tutor and a teacher of art, and also works at Maggiolly Art Supply. Ricky, you've been doing this since you were a teenager or even younger. When did you start being an artist?
Well, I think it was since I could hold a paintbrush. My dad showed me about painting, but I've seriously dedicated myself to art about 7 years ago.
Right. So, and you came out, I think, with a splash at that time because everybody was remarking at the detail of the work that you do, and it's remarkable. It keeps getting better. We see a couple of examples in behind you. So, thank you, and I think you're part of the cultural diaspora that we have here in Orangeville now. It's an amazing town. It's richer for all that happens in the art community, and then we've got also with us today Sharyn Ayliffe and Beckie Morris. And Becky is a production manager, scenic designer with Theatre Orangeville. Before you ladies joined us, I was telling Lisa and Ricky that people that create things, it's very satisfying, whether you're a carpenter or an artist or whatever, and that when you create things and you love them and then other people love them, it must be very, very satisfying career to be in. So we love what you do, Becky, and thank you for all the hard work you do. And what I've learned over the past year, I remember sitting in a Theatre Orangeville production, and you were invited to meet with David afterwards, and some of the patrons stayed, and we learned about the fact that the productions circulate throughout Ontario, and that you've got contracts with other theatre companies to provide the sets for them. I had no idea. I thought, wow, that's awesome. So that must be a proud moment for you as well to see those the work that you do being used by other theater companies.
Oh, absolutely. The fact, we often joke that our whole job is to facilitate a whole bunch of children and adults playing dress up, and there couldn't be any bigger joy in the world, right? The whole ethos of what we do for a living is to bring a communal art experience to other people, and that is just so cool.
Yeah. So you provide the palette with which the artists do the work in terms of the play. To give an art analogy, but I've been in many Theatre Orangeville productions where there's a standing ovation at the end of the play, and it's not just for the actors but the whole production. And I know you're a big part of that. So thank you for everything you do. And Sharon, you've been involved with Theatre Orangeville for a long time. I saw in your bio you're also a photographer. So your whole life is around creative things. And congratulations on being appointed in the last several months as general manager of Theatre Orangeville. It's great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate that as soon as you got appointed, they had to pull the plug on everything. But
the timing wasn't ideal. That said, I'm so happy to be in this position and to be working with David and a really incredible team, a really great staff team to pull Theatre Orangeville through this storm. And we're doing what we can to continue to deliver joy to the community. And of course, we miss our patrons terribly and can't wait till we can, once again gather in the theater and share some art. But until then, we're here. We're just working remotely and getting through the next targeted date goal. So
yeah, well, there's certainly a pent-up demand for live music. There's a pent-up demand for live theater. There's a pent-up demand for looking at art. And as soon as I guess those at the upper level there at the province can relax things even more, we'll be able to go out and enjoy all the things that we love to do in Orangeville. And Theatre Orangeville's right up at the top of the list. So wish you well in that. Finally, you get the authority to go ahead and produce another production. So great. But so that was nice to kind of bring those watching and understand who everybody is. So maybe we should launch into this incident that happened just in the last 36 hours that was released. And it was, it's unfortunate, and it's not entirely unexpected that there are people that feel that way that are out in the world today. I think what the pushback has been amongst the public is those aren't the type of people that you want in leadership positions. And that's where, I think the group as a whole, the community says, yeah, there's those people, but they're over there, right? But they're not supposed to be here. And that's really the challenge right now, is to either educate that gentleman or to create an environment where he has as little influence as possible, right? And I can tell you, I got off the phone with Warden Darren White about an hour ago, and one of the things that may happen in Dufferin County Council, he's a chair of one of the major committees within the county council, which means as chair he represents the county, and so that may change tomorrow, and it probably should. So that's one thing that the county council can do. As councillors, Lisa and I, we can give our support against those kind of words that he spoke. And at some point, I think there's going to be an integrity commissioner investigation into this. I don't know what the power is that the integrity commissioner has. I think he can suspend people, but this push to remove him from office, it's I don't know. It's unprecedented. I think we don't have the mechanism in Ontario for that. I know lots of other jurisdictions do. Maybe he can be shamed into this. I don't know, but I think he's just that type of person that won't. I don't think he will change personally. So I'll let you kick it off, Lisa. Do you want to have a couple of minutes there to share your thoughts about this and let the other folks talk?
I do.
Yeah.
I was extremely upset when I saw and heard the comments that were made at an Amaranth Council meeting. Not only as a person in leadership in the community, but as somebody who has been part of the organization Celebrate Your Awesome, where we've been really trying to educate and change people's beliefs and understanding of what inclusion in a safe community is like. And when groups of us have been working so hard towards making those changes, it's unbelievably frustrating when a person in a leadership position feels that it's acceptable to make that kind of comment, because what that does is it takes all that education that we've been doing and it throws it aside, and it makes us start right back at the beginning, or even a few years back from the beginning. And I think one of the big things that has to happen is that we need to stop making excuses for people saying that it's acceptable because they're of a different generation, or it's acceptable because they're just like that. And us as allies, that's where we need to fight back and say, no, it's not okay. It doesn't matter what your personal beliefs are. When you're in a leadership position, you push them aside and you take care of your community as a whole. And we can't make excuses for that behavior. We absolutely can't tolerate it.
Right.
I could keep going, but I won't.
Yeah. Well, I was doing a little bit of research in the last couple of days, and Canada has been a leader in rights for the LGBT community. And I posted something this morning which showed that Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Justin's father, introduced a bill in 1967 to decriminalize homosexual acts in the bedroom. And there were, that was a criminal act back in 1967, and that was even before the riot at the Stonewall Inn that kind of launched the movement and the pushback against authority that has resulted in changes in our Charter of Rights and Freedom, and in the ability for same-sex marriage and other rights that should be granted to everybody and weren't for many, many years. But Canada, God bless our leaders at the federal level, have been. I think Canada was either the first or second country that had permitted same-sex marriage, for instance, and that talk in 1967 by Pierre Elliott Trudeau was very unusual in the world at the time. He was a really progressive individual. So anyway, I'll let Ricky and then Sharon and Becky talk about this, what's happened here, and how we can defend against these things maybe going forward. But go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, so I think definitely it's very upsetting to hear somebody in a public office say something like that. You'd like to think that that's not even possible, but as we know, with political situations in other countries, different types of people get elected and they have different views. And it's true that we all have freedom of speech and we have freedom to our own opinions. But I just think it's really, really kind of unacceptable to say something like that in a position of power. It sets a bad example. And like Lisa said, a lot of us in this community are trying to make it a place so that young people who grow up here who are gay and lesbians and transgendered people can feel comfortable coming out here and living freely and being who they are and not feeling like they have to leave this community to be who they are. And when a mayor of a neighboring town says something like that, it really works against all that we've been trying to accomplish. But the really, really positive thing that's come out of this is the community support. We've had a really tremendous outpouring of support from the community. There's been a petition going around that's got like 2,000 signatures at this point. Lots of messages of hope and inspiration and support to the Celebrate Your Awesome page. I've received a bunch personally. And I think what I'm going to take away from this is that we've just got to work even harder and be more visible. I'm so proud to be a gay man living in this community and proudly being who I am and doing what I want, because I know that there's nothing wrong with me and there's nothing wrong with anybody who's LGBTQ. And we all deserve to be here. So I think it's brought the community together, and that's a positive thing that we can take out of this.
Right. Yeah, we do need to focus on positivity, because I think the war has been won. When I say the war has been won, I mean entrenched in law. The rights of gay and lesbian people have been entrenched in law. So Mr. Curry's on the wrong side of law right now, which means, the war's been won. There's still a few battles yet to be fought, and there's still some discrimination that needs to, but as time goes on, those things are going away. And I think in our community, for the most part, there's acceptance and support, I think, for the most part. So, Becky, do you want to have a few thoughts about this?
Yeah, I do have a couple thoughts. And I mean, as Councillor Post was saying, allyship. And I think about that word a lot. And in this context, I was just saying to Sharon earlier, this goes beyond what I consider to be allyship, right? We're talking about basic fundamental human rights and the blatant discrimination that was shown with those words. And then I read the stats about how many people had voted in what that election was. And there are already more signatures on the petition than people who had come out to vote in that term. And I really hope the visibility of what this is encourages more people, especially in these rural communities, to make their voice heard when it comes to the time to elect our officials.
Right. Yeah. Sharon, what about yourself? What are your thoughts?
You know, part of what Ricky said really resonated very hard with me. And I think in moments like these, we have to acknowledge that regardless of the gains that have been made, there's always going to be a long way to go. We live in a world that, is battling multi-generational thinking and is always going to be filled with people with adverse opinions. And the important thing to take away from that is that when somebody who's in a position of leadership, who is supposed to be providing unequivocally equal respect and dignity to all community members, what it actually provides is a platform for other community leaders, whether that's in government or organizationally, to stand up taller and to speak a little louder and give less light to the negative things that have happened, and to truly come together as a community and embrace, in this case, the LGBTQ community as our community. It's not a them versus us. And I've found myself saying this so many times over the last couple of months with everything happening in our world right now. As Becky says, we're talking about basic human rights. They're human rights. They're not LGBTQ rights. They're human rights. And those who have a platform to speak, those who have a platform to lead, I mean, my call is to them to really take that opportunity to spread positivity, to spread education, to spread the message of love and acceptance, not tolerance, but acceptance of your fellow community members, of your neighbors, of your family, of your friends, of your friends of friends. I think there's a huge opportunity there to take the focus away from those who choose to spew an ignorant belief, an uneducated opinion, and really turn the focus to positive motion forward.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to spin over to Celebrate Your Awesome now, because it's unfortunate that the 2020 edition has been canceled in terms of our face-to-face get together. But Lisa, can you explain a little bit about what you're planning for this weekend? I know there's a virtual Celebrate Your Awesome.
There is. We're really excited about it. Saturday night at 8 o'clock, we're going live on Facebook with a house party, and Ricky will be there as Ricky in all of her glory, emceeing. And we've got DJ spinning music all night, and we're making it the fun pride celebration of everything that makes each of us awesome. We're really focusing on positive message, making sure that everybody understands that this is a community where they are accepted, where they are loved, where they are supported, and where they're safe. And that's the primary thing, is that they're safe and welcome here in whatever it is that makes them awesome and different and unique, and we accept all of it. And that message is going to be even more important on Saturday. I'm sad that we're not celebrating in person. I'm going to miss seeing all of you there and in person, but we're not going to let a celebration go unnoticed. We're going to make sure we're partying it up in the right way. So in a true Celebrate Your Awesome manner. So follow our Facebook page, Celebrate Your Awesome Facebook page, and it'll be live there. Ricky, do you have anything else to add about Celebrate Your Awesome?
I'm just excited about our event on Saturday. Obviously wish it could be in person, but We just have to adapt with the times, and so happy to be able to be a part of it and yeah, spread that message of positivity and love and acceptance. And yeah, it's going to be great.
Celebrate Your Awesome isn't just a pride festival or pride celebration. You've expanded a little bit, have you not, to a more, just to expand upon racial inclusivity and diversity as well?
The reason that it's called Celebrate Your Awesome and not just Pride was because when we started at the beginning, we wanted to make sure that it was an inclusive event where everybody felt welcome and safe. Again, regardless of what it is that makes them awesome, we want them to come and celebrate it. So if that's your religion, if that's your culture, if it's the color of your skin, your sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. Everybody is welcome and everybody is equal and everybody is celebrating together as a community the way that it should be. So Celebrate Your Awesome was about that. And it is a primarily pride-focused event, but more than anything, it's about celebrating everything that makes each of us unique and knowing that our individuality is what's important, and that's what makes a community come together.
I wanted to ask you, what's happened in the United States, what we've watched in terms of the anti-Black racism that it seemed like police officers have. It's unfortunate. Everybody's a videographer now, so things are being captured now that 20 years ago, these kind of things happened. They weren't captured and they got swept under the carpet. And I think, I was thinking those 4 officers in Minneapolis, if this had been 20 years ago, they would have written up a report all the same, and that would have been completely swept under the carpet. And that gentleman he died in custody because of whatever they came up with. So thank heavens to Steve Jobs and some of the other people that have put this technology in our hands now that can help prevent these terrible things from happening. But, so there's been a real renewed discussion about police tactics and, even things like responses to crisis, whether they're mental health crises or substance abuse crisis. And it's, I think it's a really healthy discussion. And, that term defund police has been thrown out there, which I was struggling when I first heard it. But I think the intent is you have to shift some of the resources into mental health and substance abuse in order to relieve the police from having to respond in a militaristic way that they're trained to do. They're not trained to be social workers or to kind of de-escalate things typically. So I've had a discussion with Sylvia Jones, our Minister of Solicitor General, and I did talk to her about that, and she's like, yeah, we already do that. And I went, well, I hope we do more of it, because here in this community, we don't have those crisis response teams that need to happen. And I don't know, can you guys share your thoughts about what's been going on that front? Because I really think it's been an eye-opener for everybody. We need to have more de-escalation and thinking about substance abuse as a medical condition instead of a criminal act. Those people need help. They don't need to get bashed on the head with a baton, right? So anyway, Lisa, you start off and we'll go around the table. What do you think?
I think with some of the stuff that's been going on in the US, I mean, I don't want to comment so much about the police matter, but talking about Black Lives Matter movement as a whole, things like this have come up when we allow, again, we're going back to people in power, and when we allow people in power, like the President of the United States, to say things publicly against other races, against the LGBTQ community, against women, we're allowing those conversations to happen and be acceptable. And what we're seeing now in the US, and a lot of it came as a result of Mr. George Floyd, is people are not taking it anymore. People are not afraid to stand up against the people in power, and so they should be. And if anything positive has come out of this, it's about those people in the community having a louder voice and being heard more, for whether they're racialized, whether they're oppressed in any way, shape, or form. They're feeling now like they have a voice that they can stand up to because they're seeing that social media movement happening. They're seeing things happening on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, where people are standing up, and you're seeing white allies standing with the Black community. You're seeing straight allies standing with the LGBTQ community, and you're seeing that those things matter and that people matter and that they're making a stand about making sure that all oppressed people matter and that we need to bring them to the forefront.
Yeah, the phrase, our thoughts and prayers are with you. This doesn't cut it anymore. Right?
No, it absolutely doesn't.
Ricky, what are your thoughts about what's going on?
Well, I know for myself personally, with all of the things that have been happening in the world over the past few months, I don't feel like before this past few months, I would have been comfortable coming even onto this video meeting dressed like this. But I feel like because of everything that's happened, it's like I just have to embrace even more who I am fearlessly and be that in the community as an example for other people, to open up that space for somebody else who might want to do something like that in the community. I just want to go back to like the mental health issue, because I've known people in my life that have had some serious mental health struggles. And I know for them, for one man in particular, and I obviously won't name any names, but there's a fear when they're in crisis, there's a fear of, oh God, don't call the police, because who knows what might happen. And the people around them are thinking, oh God, we have to call the police because there's this crazy crisis going on. But there's this like really intense fear because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get hurt. And if there was some other number you could call where you weren't afraid that your friend might get hurt or worse, or even thrown in jail because they're in a mental health crisis, I think that would be I think that's such an important thing that we need to do. And I think that the reason mental health crisis is so in the forefront now is because we're so connected. Things like this have been happening throughout history all the time. They've just been hidden and, like Sandy said, swept under the rug. But now that they're out in the light, we really need to address it from a societal perspective and create something that is more properly prepared to deal with a mental health crisis. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is happening already in Ontario, not in our community, but a social worker or a healthcare worker goes out on a crisis call with a police officer, and their job is to bring the situation under control, not to put somebody in handcuffs or escalate it further. So anyway, I hope more resources are given to the healthcare community, because I think that's, if we can get that under control, then likely the police budgets will go down, because a lot of criminality happens because of mental health issues and substance abuse issues, which I think are medical conditions, not necessarily criminal acts, And I think Portugal, if I'm not mistaken, Portugal has decriminalized all drugs. Like heroin is decriminalized. And they've had a great deal of success in helping people with substance abuse by focusing on the medical condition side of it, rather than creating criminals out of these people that are trying to escape from reality, and they're doing it whatever way they can. So anyway, Sharon, what are your thoughts?
I don't think enough can really be said for the need to remove the stigmas that exist around mental health. I don't think that it's necessary for every first responder to have a psychological degree, but I do think it's necessary for every first responder to have some training on mental health issues. I think that people are afraid to ask for help when they're struggling, and I think the system is not evolved enough to appropriately deal with those who are courageous enough to ask for help. I know even our own system locally, while there's a number of organizations, particularly in the last year or two, who are working very aggressively to improve how our system works, how the intake works, how the processing works, how the ongoing support after the moment of crisis is dealt with, as it is in many other communities as well. There's such a long way to go to make people feel confident and to really understand that struggling with mental health at some point in your life is the norm. It's not a rarity. There is no negative aspect about it. It's no different than having poor enamel on your teeth and needing to get a couple crowns. It's just something that we as humans go through. It's a real a really normal thing to experience, and to get through your childhood, your adult life, through till the end of life without experiencing some sort of mental health struggle is very uncommon. And we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about it openly enough. And if we could remove some of that stigma, if we could provide those first responders with the tools they needed to better understand situations when they get to them, I really do think we would see an incredible improvement in how individual cases are dealt with, and what the overall financial burden to the system is. Investing in mental health education for first responders and mental health supports for people, and making that asking for those supports feel normal, will cost so much less in the long run than the systems we're working with now, which are just not functional. And it's so hard to see how greatly people struggle, particularly those who are marginalized in any way, because it just amps it up and elevates it to such a higher level when you're struggling against any kind of marginalization whatsoever. Those statistics become scarier and scarier. So I really don't think enough can be said for what that investment needs to be.
Yeah, and
That's
everybody's, I think people are afraid of people in uniforms generally. I mean, when a police officer pulls up beside me at the traffic light, I mean, I don't have anything to fear, but it's like, is my belt on? What have I done? Are my headlights working? You know, so everybody's got a bit of trepidation. I guess that's part of the intent of the police. They want you to be intimidated to some extent, but people that are in mental health crisis, maybe that's not what they need. They need some empathy, right? And so I hope there's some balance there. In some cases, people have to be handled roughly, but in most cases, they need to be dealt with in a more empathetic fashion. And one of the things I've learned in the past year or so is the police and the health people, they don't share records because of Privacy Act things. And yet, if a police officer could know when they arrive that there's been a history, or when the person arrives at the hospital and there's a police history, somehow they need to have their systems talking. And I don't know if it'll ever come to pass because of privacy laws, but it seems to me like it would make sense that information gets shared to some extent. So anyway, Becky, we didn't give you a chance to talk on this, so go ahead.
I guess my thoughts surround more about the racial questions. And I was having a conversation with my mother last week, and we were talking about, she'd made a comment about raising us to be colorblind. And I mean, I grew up in my little liberal arts bubble, in which it was okay to be whatever color you wanted and whatever orientation you wanted. It's everything was celebrated. And I was saying to her that right now it's not about being colorblind, because to say that I don't see somebody's skin tone as different than mine is untrue, right? It's a visual indicator. And we were talking with our son before school let out, and he was talking to us about a friend he had at school. And we're trying to narrow it down because I can't keep all the names straight. And we're asking all the descriptors. We're like, the guy who plays soccer, is it the guy over there in the blue shirt? And the last thing he used to describe the person he was talking about was the color of their skin. And I thought that was really great. And that's a moment of kind of that colorblind, because as kids, they just see people. But as adults, I really think it's important to celebrate, not see, but to see you and to recognize what our differences are and be able to celebrate them together. Because all of our backgrounds, all of our cultures, all of our histories, those are what make Canada such an amazing and interesting place to live.
Right.
So, yeah, I want my point to be like celebrate, not ignore. Well,
many people have said when babies are born, there's no discrimination or racism in them. That this is you grow up and you're a product of your environment, unfortunately. And so I think our education systems, I just saw in the last day or two, the province announced some new math curriculums, and I think we need some new life skill curriculum, a more advanced teaching of diversity and issues of racism, or we need to get away from even that word. We just need to get towards acceptance, right, of everybody. And I think teachers need to be able to spend more time on that with their students, so that they can combat the grandma or grandpa who might be trying to influence a child in a way that they shouldn't be. So I hope all of this sort of amazing month of June of 2020, that's all these things are being captured here, that we don't lose the enthusiasm for change that seems to be really relevant right now, and I hope it all comes to pass. But the teaching is, I think we really need to put resources there, so that children are taught the right way and not necessarily what they're listening to at home, right? Which sometimes isn't the right way.
I think that's actually an excellent point, because one of the things we can do to further this conversation and to further a better world is to start calling it out at home. Because one of the most dangerous things and things that the kids are always watching is casual racism. Is, oh, Uncle Johnny, that's just how he is, or like you said earlier, I mean, family members from a different generation, right? That's just how they think. But I think having those uncomfortable conversations, but calling them out in the moment and saying, that's not okay. This is not okay to talk like that, is really important, but it's difficult. It's so much easier said than done. But people are always watching, and our kids are always watching.
Many families have an Uncle Bob.
Absolutely right. And
Right.
I'm so sad at some of the events that have happened in the last 30 days, especially. But if there was one positive piece to come out of it, it's been the conversations that have happened. It's been the people who are stopping their family members from speaking that way and telling them that it's unacceptable. It's people having the uncomfortable conversations with the people that are in their lives that are unaccepting of anybody for who they are, whether it be racist comments or anti-LGBTQ comments or anti-any humanity comments. The conversation and dialogue and education that have come out have been amazing. So for anybody who's following along, I really hope that everybody's taking everything that they're seeing all over social media and really walking away with it to make sure that we're making positive changes that are coming out of this. This is conversations that had to happen, and I'm sad at the events that led these conversations to happen, but they needed to happen.
I think we're just masked people now, aren't we? we go to the store. We're just masked people. We're all the same.
Right.
It's funny. I was at the store the other, it's like everybody's a robot. They're just walking around with these masks. Not that they're not necessary. I really believe in masks, but it's funny how you can't really recognize people anymore, right? Some people you can, but.
I've been trying to practice smiling with my eyes. How do I make eye contact with somebody and make them feel at ease, because I'm a smiley person? So they're just looking at you in total panic mode the whole time.
I've seen masks with a clear plastic thing, so that you can see the smile. You can see, and I guess think of the poor people that are hard of hearing or don't or deaf. The only way they can communicate is by reading lips and that type of thing. So yeah, it's tough for some people. It's really tough.
Definitely.
So. Well, listen, we've been at this for about 40 minutes, which is typically the distance that we do with these things. If you go too far on videos like this, everybody's like, okay, enough of that. But I just wanted to give each one of you a moment here to share your final thoughts. Lisa, just about celebrate your awesome LGBTQ and I think the positive things that have come out of some kind of negative stuff. But what you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I think I've said enough personally. I want the others to have a really good opportunity, but I do just want to say, make sure you tune in to Celebrate Your Awesome. We're going to be celebrating even more awesome this year. So even though we're virtual, just please hop onto our Facebook page and show all of our community that we're inclusive and we're together. And the more people that are on that live will show that.
Yeah. Ricky, go ahead.
I would just like to say that humanity is this beautiful, diverse tapestry of all these different types of people, and what that tapestry needs is more uniqueness and more beauty and not more of the same. So don't be afraid to be who you are. Don't be ashamed. You're beautiful, and the coolest things about you are what make you different and what sets you apart. So don't be afraid to be who you are. And hopefully we can all be who we want to be in this community and be safe and be happy together.
Okay, excellent. Well said. Sharon?
I think what I would really like to leave people with is the courage to seek education. If you have been brought up in a family dynamic where perhaps you've not been taught to love inclusively and with an open heart and acceptance to all people, and you've perhaps made some poor choices, it's never too late to change your thoughts or your opinions or to re-educate yourself. I think that that's so critical. And I know that that feels uncomfortable, and that can come with a lot of shame based on maybe past actions or words that have been spoke. But it really is never too late to decide to make yourself a better person who is more accepting and loving and generous with your heart to your surroundings and your community, and to then take that and teach your children to love. Because if we all behaved as if we were in a kindergarten classroom, the world would be such a joyous place. Everybody is equal and everybody is there to share joy and experience life together. And I think that that's so important. So, I mean, there's lots of resources available. At Theatre Orangeville is always a place of love and diversity and acceptance and inclusion. And, you know, if we can't help or provide that answer, because that's not what we do, we certainly have the community partnerships that, you know, we can connect you with the people you need to be connected to. We're so in love with this community that we live and, you know, raise our son and work in, that I really do. I think it's never too late to be better.
Yeah, I like your kindergarten class analogy. We could all get together and eat Elmer's glue together, you know, which some of us did. Anyway, Becky, you got the final word here.
My final word. I just want to take a second. Sounds like a plug. I want to talk about how proud I am to have spent the last 12 years in this community working with Theatre Orangeville, and the safe space it provides for people to be themselves. I can't count the number of co-op students or young people who have had the courage but felt empowered and safe within our spaces to reach out and either come out or ask hard questions about their family, or just express to a room of peers these self-truths they have about who they are that they have never been comfortable saying out loud before. It's so profound to be a part of an organization that allows such a safe environment for people to celebrate themselves and know that regardless of their race, color, religion, sexual orientation, that they are celebrated for who they are, as long as they have kindness at the heart of it. And I think that's really been an amazing thing to be a part of.
So you've actually helped with you know, breaking down mental health issues, because
before I took
those people, if they weren't, go ahead. Sorry, lost you there.
It's okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Sharon.
Online streaming, it gets a little choppy sometimes. I before I took the GM position, I spent about 8.5 years managing our youth programs, and Becky and a number of our other production team and staff have done a lot of mentoring, and I've lost count of the number of kids who have found their safe place, and whether that was because they needed somewhere safe to be who they were, or, you know, were severely bullied for being different and on the brink of making some very hard and very permanent decisions to find
Oh,
in that place to be safe and embraced and loved and not just told but shown how important they are and how beautiful they are and how critical they are to this community to make it the community that it is. It's that's
well, I'm learning, because that I never even thought about Theatre Orangeville in that way. But thank you for sharing that with us, because it's just one more feather in the hat of Theatre Orangeville, that you're able to provide that friendly and inviting and accommodating space for those kids. That's fantastic. Yeah. All right, so we're just about at the end. So I want to thank you all very much. It was a really good conversation. Lots of good and positive things happening in our community, and there's a couple little bumps in the road that happen from time to time, but together we can all get through it and get over it, and continue to celebrate the wonderful lives that we have. So anyway, thanks very much. So we're gonna take a couple seconds here to smile, and thank you again.